when I think about doing most of my content according to keynotes, it makes things so easy to do. Okay, so I have a video, it's one of the way earlier ones that I did, and it talks about, I think it's called Anti-Aging Vacation. And the point of this was to talk about how to remove resistance from the physical body. Now, there are quite a few requests from that video to go deeper into environment. So, as requested, I'm gonna go a little bit deeper into environment, what different ones there are, how to look at this, what it means, where you find it. Hopefully I remember to hit most of those points. Now, the body graph is always split into two different sides, design and personality. Environment is going to belong to the design side, not the personality side. Now, the top two gates on the design side are going to be for the brain and whether or not the brain is active or passive, how you're supposed to feed it, and what its cognition is. When you go down to the next two gates, those are going to be the north node and south node. The nodes represent the storyline and setting for the life that you're supposed to have. Now, the design nodes, they set up what this environment is. You know, when we say the setting of the life, we mean the environment that the best life for you unfolds in. So where is it? Now, it's not just the nodes, you have to go deeper than that. There are going to be two gates for your design north and south nodes. Now, those gates are going to have a line, and after that line, they're going to have a color. The color is the thing that's going to represent what your environment is. And color goes 1 to 6. Just like line, just like tone, it follows the hexagram. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Now, the tricky part about this is if you're looking at just like a standard free version of a body graph, it will tell you the gate and line of the north and south node. It's probably not going to tell you the color. And there's a good chance that you've got like a mid-grade body graph where there's some notes on the side and it says what your environment is, but it doesn't actually assign the color. So you're like, cool, I'm kitchens, but I don't know where that's found. Well, I'm telling you where it's found. Whatever number this is, it's the color, which is the decimal point after the line attached to the gate in the design north and south node. I think I've said it enough times to really drill that point in right now. So we're gonna start at first color. We're gonna work our way up to sixth color. First color environment is caves. Second color environment is markets. Third color environment is kitchens. Fourth color environment is mountains. Fifth color environment is valleys. Sixth color environment is shores. Now, there are always two sides to each environment. There are 6 environments, but each one has 2 subtypes. So in theory, there are 12 unique environments. Now, how do you know which side of the subtype you're on? The trick is variable. Now, people will often refer to it as the arrow because on most body graphs, it is shown with a graphic of an arrow and it points left or right. Arrow is not the right term for variable. The correct term for this specific variable is independent design variable. The brain is dependent design variable. The personality is dependent personality variable. And view perspective is independent personality variable. There is a pattern there. Independent was for the nodes, dependent was for the brain and mind. So we are looking at the independent design variable. That's the arrow. Frick. It's the arrow that you're looking at. Now what you want to see is it pointed left? God, the mirror image of this kills me. I think I say that in every video. I have to stop pointing. I just have to use the words. If it's pointed left, this is active, left functioning, stimulated into activity. When we say active, stimulated into activity, it is meant to be observed. It's meant to be watched because it's busy in its environment. It's doing something. And that is interesting to the other side. If you're right facing, this is passive, not active, as in the body is pacified in the correct environment. Now, I don't want anybody to hear pacified and think like you become a pacifist. That's not what we're saying. Pacified means relaxed and observing. You are watching the person who is stimulated into activity in the environment. So whether we are left facing or right facing in the independent design variable, that's going to give you an idea about whether or not your environment is one where you're stimulated into activity or pacified into observation. Now, I am markets internal. I have a left-facing independent design variable. What that means is that I am stimulated into activity in my correct markets environment. So again, we will go through each of these. If you are caves and left, you're going to be busy in your cave, stimulated in your cave. If you're markets and left, stimulated in your markets, busy in your markets. If you're kitchens and you're left, stimulated into activity in the kitchen. Mountains, stimulated into activity in the mountain. Valleys, stimulated into activity in the valleys. Shores, stimulated. Now, left shores is natural shores. Think about actually going to the beach. Think about going to the beach with kids. Stimulated into activity. This is someone who wants to build a sandcastle. Now, don't get me wrong, shores does not mean that you have to be at a beach with sand. That is like a gross reduction on my part, but it is what most people think of when they think of the shore, and natural does imply that there is a natural element, likely a water element, but there is a strong boundary line. That's what the shore is really representing. Same thing if it's right, but opposite. Are you a right-facing independent design variable for a first color environment? As in, are you chilling in the cave? You know, there was a very technical way to say that, and then there was a very layman's way to say that. Are you chilling in the cave? Are you chilling out in the external market? Are you chilling out in the kitchen? Are you chilling out in the mountain? Are you chilling out in the valley? Are you chilling out at the shore? There is a relaxed nature versus a more left, busy kind of nature. Now, there's also a very cool differentiation between left and right, and kitchens is the one that really anchors this in, because kitchens is either considered wet kitchens or dry kitchens. Wet kitchens is left facing. Dry kitchens is right facing. There is a really cool thing that you can pull from that information, which is that a left environment literally needs more humidity, more moisture. And again, we tie that into the natural shore. Whereas the right kitchen is dry kitchen. This is someone who does not prefer a humid environment. They prefer a dry environment. Now, these things belong to the body. So a very practical way where you can see this is, does your skin prefer to be in a humid environment or a dry environment? What happens to your skin when you go into the opposite of the kind of environment you're supposed to be into? Now let's do keynotes for the number itself and still apply this to the environment. A cave is a number 1. When we think about what a first line is, we have the investigator researcher. This is somebody who is curious, who seeks a secure foundation, who's digging into things. And what that really means is that a cave is secure. A cave is protected. A cave is a very, very, very limited kind of environment. It's not bringing a lot of things that it doesn't trust, that it doesn't feel secure about. If we even think about first color motivation, we've got fear motivation. Think about fear in the cave. You know, the cave is really trying to control who's coming in and out so that it can protect itself, so that it can stay secure. So if you're a cave's environment, security is really, really important to you. Second color environment is going to be markets. Now, if I take markets and I contrast that with the second profile line, which is the hermit. it might be kind of hard to connect what the market and hermit have to do together. But an amazing keynote that works for both of them is discernment. And that one's really easy to anchor in when you think about the two in cognition, taste, cognition. There's a strong sense of discernment. Markets is a very, very discerning kind of environment, and it's very transactional. It's a lot easier for me to anchor this one in when I think about my internal markets, in the fact that it's like the cave getting ready to come out into the world. My internal market means that I am meant to make transactions from home, be discerning about who comes into my home in order to make those transactions with me. The difference between the cave and the market is honestly like putting the open sign with business hours on the front door. The cave doesn't want to do that. The cave wants more security. They're really not cool with strangers coming into the house. But the two can be very, very discerning, and it can allow more things in for more transactions to happen. Now, two being internal markets, left facing, that's like the next step out of the cave. When it flips to right facing and it becomes external markets, this is still someone who's meant to be discerning about their transactions, but it's out of the house. These are people who work away from the home. So now we've gotten what feels like one step further away from the cave. Kitchens is one that I find people tend to assume that they know what kitchens means, and then they don't really dig into it too much, because sometimes when the word is very common for a typical environment, as in most of us have kitchens. Most of us have kitchens in our houses. Most of us access kitchens very, very frequently, and because it's called kitchens, unfortunately people tend to think that it is like the literal kitchen, and God forbid they take that in some kind of sexist direction where it's like they're mad that because they identify as a woman that, you know, they somehow think that they're like tied to the kitchen or something. Please learn more about human design if that's the perspective that you have. Kitchen is a 3. What else is a 3? Trial and error, action sense, power view. 3 has alchemy involved in it. It's called kitchens because it's acknowledging that it's a place where many different ingredients can come together and be combined to make something new. You know, I have 10 items here, but they make a salad. You know, the salad is the one thing new. But when you're thinking about the kitchen's environment, I don't want you necessarily thinking about the ingredients. I want you thinking about the elements in the environment and how everything is playing off of it, mixing with it, collaborating with it, inspired, like, think alchemy is happening. It's also called the laboratory sometimes. I'm not sure where that one comes from. I'm not sure that's even a real keynote, but I do think it's a pretty accurate description. A lab is a nice way to get people's head out of the kitchen and understanding it's a place for experimenting. Now, mountains people are about to get a little bit of a call out that is meant to be supportive. Mountains environment people have a tendency to see themselves as like, I like to go to the woods. I like to go hiking. And they're not really acknowledging what a mountain is. A mountain is high up. A mountain is up in elevation. Things change when you go up in elevation. The number one thing that's going to change is oxygen levels. The air you are breathing is going to change for a mountain's environment. So if I say that mountains has significantly more to do with elevation and oxygen, now you can think about a few different ways to play with this. And here's where the call out comes. Most people who are mountains are smokers. And I don't mean they always will be. I don't mean they currently are. I mean that at some point in their life, smoking has been a coping mechanism for them. And by coping mechanism, I mean substitute environment. Something in them said, get away from people, go take a break, go change your oxygen levels. And I don't necessarily mean cigarettes. You can smoke a variety of different things. Most fourth color environment people, mountains environment people, when I say, so what do you like to smoke? Or what did you like to smoke? They're like, ah, you know, because they didn't really like smoking and they didn't identify as smokers, but they know what I'm talking about in terms of needing to get space, needing to take a moment, needing to catch their breath. You know, when I think about people who smoke, a lot of the times it's a habit that is developed out of stress, out of needing to regulate, out of needing to get a few minutes for yourself. And because it's kind of a grubby habit, as in it doesn't smell very good, it doesn't taste very good, it has a tendency to like discolor things, and like smoke doesn't usually serve as a benefit for a lot of things unless you're preserving food. So there tends to be some judgment about like, oh, I was, and I'm like, let it go. I know why you did it. And it's not because you're weak-willed or you did it because you needed a minute. You needed to catch your breath. You needed 5 seconds to yourself. You needed to go process some information. And then you were able to integrate back into the group, your life, the setting, whatever. Now, if you're hearing this and you're like, Sam, that still doesn't apply to me, I bet I can still hit you. Smudging, incense, oxygen bars, diffusers. What are things that are going to change the air? Going and sitting around a campfire will even qualify for this, but I really feel like if we're gonna go around a campfire, we're somewhere between the transition between kitchens and mountains. Okay, on to valleys. Valleys is interesting when it's described as either narrow or wide. And the easiest way to understand this one is to understand that valleys is a 5, and all 5 related things, all 5 keynotes will have something to do with frequency, with acoustics. So I want you to think about a hallway versus like an amphitheater and yelling into each one. How do the acoustics work? How does the frequency move? How does the sound travel? A narrow valley, it goes straight. A wide valley is much more diffused. Now, valleys people, I noticed this with my son. My son is valley's environment, and also I have to add a caveat here. His environment isn't actually important until Saturn return. Nobody's environment is important until Saturn return. If you're 22 and you're like, oh, I gotta get my environment. Actually, no, you don't. And if you have a 6-year-old and you're like, I need to reform their bedroom so that it's their environment. No, you don't. It's an odd thing to say, and I hesitate to even believe it myself. But we were born into the appropriate environments. It's our job when we become adults, Saturn return, to put ourselves in the correct nurturing environment for us. You don't need your right environment until you hit Saturn return. Now, once you hit Saturn return, you need your right environment. It's very, very, very important. But if you're not at Saturn return yet, it's not that important. It's not relevant. It doesn't matter. Okay, now, even though it doesn't matter, there's still going to be clues from little kids about what their environment is. And one thing I notice about valleys people, they like to sit in the middle of the floor. They like to sit in the middle of the room. Now, when somebody sits in the middle of the room, let's talk about a projection. 5s have to deal with a projection field. If someone sits in the middle of everything that's going on, the projection is that they want to be the center of attention. And that's not true. It's not true at all. They really actually don't care to be the center of attention. What they care for is to be in the center of the acoustics. They want the best sound. It has nothing to do with them being seen. It has to do with what they're hearing. So when you have a valleys person who is trying to get the best seat in the theater, think about that. It's about the best acoustics. When they want to sit in the middle of the room. It's not about attention. It has nothing to do with attention. It's about sound. Shores is very much about not being able to be accessed by everything. Having a place that is separate. Like within my larger, environment of, I'm using the word environment too much, within my larger property, I have my own home, and then it's appropriate that the Shores environment is detached from the home. You gotta walk down the pathway to get into this one. It has a lock on the door. It's very separate, detached. Detached is an excellent sixth color, line, whatever, keynote. A sixth keynote is detached. This is a detached space. Now we have natural shores and we have artificial shores. Naturals is left facing, artificial is right facing. Natural shores is stimulated into activity. Artificial shores is pacified. This is a wonderful place to watch. I can see a lot from here. Now, I may not be a six color environment, but I am a six color view, a six color motivation, a six line design. I have a lot of six in me. So there is a lot of benefit that I get from being in a place of observation. I can watch. People can't bother me here. While this might not be my ultimate environment, I kind of hacked it because it's still in my property. It's still within my markets. In fact, what this studio represents for me is my innocence motivation. This studio is a wonderful place for me to be separate, on my own, doing my own thing. Like, I have a very different kind of creative vibe when I'm in here. And it doubles as a ballet studio. So definitely there's so much six going on in here. Very, very sixy in here. And if anything, the kicker is the next environment that this would be is a cave. It's a contained separate unit, one door, locks. Now don't get me wrong, there's a window. Locks on those too. It could roll over into the next cave, secure kind of environment. Now let's say that your Shores environment and you're not in a place where you can actually have what you think is the proper environment to live in. You have whatever home you have and you want to adapt it in the best way possible for what you need. The best way to do that is to make sure that above waist high is clear, as in open, expansive view. Think about counter surfaces being pretty uncluttered, pretty clear. You can usually tell a Shores person because from like the counter level up, there's not much going on. They don't necessarily hang pictures on the wall. They don't have really busy shelves or anything like that. They like clear. Anything that would be considered busy or clutter would be below waist height. And in that, we get an automatic separation of busyness on the bottom and like, I want to say cleanness, but like clarity on the top. Unobstructed, whatever. If you need to hack your environment as Shores, that can be helpful. However, you really want to make sure that you are detached. We want, for Shores, we want it to be hard to bother you. We want it to be like you are on the roof. Roof and Shores, they got the same thing going on. The ability to look at everything else that's going on without necessarily being bothered or getting involved. I'm gonna end this with the ultimate benefit of being in the right environment. Why does it matter? Why should you care? Why should you try? And it's because it removes resistance. Now remember, environment is in the design side. It's in the form side, the physical body side. When you put your physical body in the best environment, in the environment it's meant to be in, you're removing resistance. And what resistance is literal friction on the vehicle. As in, you're going to age faster. You're going to oxidize faster. You're going to, literally, it's like you're rusting. It's like, ugh. It's breaking you down. It's wearing you down. If you don't feel healthy, if you don't feel like you're meeting the right people, if you're not meeting the people on your fractal that you're supposed to be meeting in this lifetime, if you are physically struggling, if you are sick, get yourself to the right environment. I lucked out with the pandemic. I did. I truly did. When we went into lockdown, I was forced to be home. I had businesses. I had my herbal company, Mountain Medicine Holistics. I had started my design business. I'd been starting little home-based businesses for a very long time. I think I've had like 5 Etsy stores. These are all examples of home-based businesses. I cut hair from home. I babysat from home. I've had farms. Like, there are so many things where I am at home, but nobody had told me that that was where I was meant to be to make the best money. Like, to actually thrive as myself, to experience my signature. If I had known how easy it was going. Now, you know what? As I'm saying this, I gotta catch myself, because I can be a lot hard on myself. I've already said that environment doesn't matter until Saturn return. The pandemic happened, 2020? What was I, 30? 30? It was 30? Like, when the pandemic happened, it was like Saturn return. You're in your right environment. And it worked. I gotta say, I was very blessed during the pandemic to be forced into my right environment. It's a rare thing to say, and I'm not saying this about anybody else's circumstance, but my Saturn return and the pandemic and lockdown coincided at the perfect time for me. I can't help but think that this is exactly what was supposed to be happening in my life. I got sent home, and in that I couldn't go out and do my not self job anymore. And the 2 businesses that I was working on from home, they didn't have a choice but to actually take off and provide for me. It was like, you're in your right environment and it's just gonna work because you're not experiencing as much resistance and you're doing what you're supposed to be doing. I don't know, it happened. It worked really well for me. Since I have been in my correct environment, my life has gotten significantly easier. My body feels better. I'm getting more of the help that I need. I'm meeting the right people in my life. And I'll be honest, I'm making significantly better money. It's just working out way better for me. I cannot speak highly enough of being in the right environment and how much of a benefit it's going to be for your body. Now, my camera already just tried to die once, and I'm lucky I managed to turn it back on for this last clip, so I'm not gonna push my luck. We're gonna call it a day here. I hope you got something good out of that.